Well, hi and welcome. This is Kevin Leipzig, host of Contractor TV. Our channel is focused on providing content designed specifically to help contractors start and grow and protect their construction business. We're sponsored by the Contractors Resource Center, which specializes in providing affordable insurance for newly licensed contractors and small business owners with 2 to 50 employees. Today on Contractor TV, we're excited to have Carolyn Cromeans. Carolyn is a true jack of all trades. In addition to being the owner and managing partner of Cromeans Law Firm, Carolyn is the co-founder of Morel Masonry Supply and the owner of the Subcontractor Institute, which is an online educational platform for contractors. Carolyn is also the host of educational construction podcast, Quit Getting Screwed, and she has published 2 amazing best-selling books, Quit Getting Screwed, Understanding and Negotiating the Subcontract, and the Quit Getting Stiffed, a Texas Contractor's Guide on Liens and Collections. Carolyn, welcome. That's quite a background. I love those book titles, Quit Getting Screwed, and that's just nothing like that, right? Nobody wants to be screwed.
Absolutely. And like, if you've been in the construction industry long enough, it's happened. So, right. I'm trying to get everybody to learn from, experiences of other contracts that haven't gone so well and experiences. So, and it's just what it is. It's what happens.
Yep, absolutely. Just the nature of the business, right? So we're excited to have you here. You and I got connected. Your firm joined our California Contractor group on Facebook, which is really blown up over the last year. It's been a great forum for contractors to share best practices, to share tips on how they're doing business. And I'm glad we connected because I think these topics are important, not only especially for newly licensed contractors, but contractors that have been in business for some time. The goal today is, to cover at a high level some important things you need to understand as a contractor when it comes to legal issues. Examples: why do you need a contract? Why you should consider being incorporated, and why you should have a consistent collection strategy. Those are kind of at a high level what we're going to talk about today. We will have some future videos coming out. Carolyn and I will be recording, drilling into each of these more specific topics. But for today, why don't we start off, I think, how do you find a legal counsel that understands construction? You're laughing, right? Because I know in my experience helping contractors with insurance, they say, oh, I've got a business attorney. And there's a night and day difference that I've learned between a general business attorney to somebody that really knows and understands construction. So maybe share with us some tips and maybe some guidelines on how to find a quality firm that knows and understands construction.
Absolutely. And I think it takes a little bit of work on the front end. So the best time to do it is when you don't need one, right? Do some research and find somebody when you're not in a rut.
Not in panic mode.
Exactly.
Right.
And here's the thing is, once you find that resource, you don't have to hire them right away, but there's going to be turn if there's going to be an issue. And I think one of the, there's some great business attorneys out there that do business, but construction is its own very specific industry, and how it works, how you work, and then wait to get paid. And it's got a lot of its own lingo. So I would sit down and say, ask them some of the questions that you have, and you'll start to see if they're on the same page with you. Not it's like ask them about delay damages or change orders, something that's specific to the construction industry. And if you can see like the kind of look on their face, they don't know exactly what you're talking about.
Right. Yeah.
And just start talking the language and see if you get it back. Not so much on the technical, like types of concrete or the PSI of concrete or things like that, but on the specific things that you've heard of that you deal, maybe have issues with in the past, like customers not paying on time or, all of the. So I think a business attorney can do an okay job. A construction attorney who's familiar, who has a background in construction, can do an outstanding job because they can marry the industry with the law. And make sure that you're protected, because construction is very much its own kind of niche, especially in the law.
Yeah, great suggestions. What would you say And again, I know there's a lot of issues, legal issues, but if you were to pick, the top 2 to 3 most important legal topics or issues that a contractor should be aware of or be prepared for, what would come top of mind for you?
So the first thing is to be incorporated. Before we start going into people's houses or signing contracts or doing things like that, we really need to be incorporated. And why do we need to be incorporated? Because the liability issues, right? So the corporation is basically its own entity, its own, like you as an individual or your own person, the corporation is its own person. And so if there are mishaps or things that happen, if you are incorporated, that liability from those mishaps or things that go wrong only falls on the corporation. Now, if you don't incorporate, right, then you personally and all of your personal assets become up for grabs for any mishaps, mistakes, accidents, all the things, because there's no protection. So the corporation, and it could be an LLC, it could be an Inc., the
S Corp, C Corp.
matter, yeah, the matter that more depends on taxes than liability. All of them provide the same type of insulation from your personal assets. It does have upkeep and stuff like that we'll get into in details in the videos to come. But the main focus of it is that if run properly, it will protect you from individual liability.
Okay. So the S Corp, C Corp, and the different types of corporations are more the due diligence in selecting that type of corporation entity is typically more for advantages of tax purposes or other advantages. But in general, incorporating the common thread there is it helps protect your assets and your liability. Is that, did I hear you correctly?
Correct. Absolutely. You don't want to start going out into the public world as your own individual self, because then your house, your bank account, your cars then become assets that somebody who has an accident, somebody who you make mad and they sue you can collect against. Yep.
And especially in California and having the insurance discussion with especially new contractors, we're talking about liability insurance, and it's interesting. It's not uncommon to have a conversation where I'm going to go out in the field, I'm going to work. I don't want to do liability insurance until I start having some cash flow. I don't even own a home. I don't own my truck. I'm not worried about being sued. And I remind them, and again, especially in California, you get sued, there's something called future wages or attaching future wages, right? You don't have to have a lot of assets in the bank to have, a financial disaster on your hands by getting sued.
Absolutely.
So these things, the insurance and the incorporation, they go, hand in hand. So if you're a sole proprietor and you're not incorporated, or if you get incorporated, how does the law protect the contractor from not getting sued personally? I'd just be curious. I know the goal is to have that corporation be the entity that's sued, I guess, if you will. But how does it really protect that person from not getting their house taken away or their personal assets?
Because the party to a proper suit, if something goes wrong, is the company. Unless you do something fraudulent that you don't run the company correctly, or do something fraudulent that would raise to the level of you being individually liable, the company is the proper party to the lawsuit. If they add you individually without basis, you can get that part removed from the lawsuit. So they could do it, but it could be removed. So the main thing is that the proper party to the lawsuit is the corporation. And that's another thing. Once you're acting in the corporation, you need to sign, like, I'm, member of the LLC. Everything you sign as member, and it's got the corporation name on it. So, that way, when an attorney goes to sue, they're going to see who signed the contract. And if the corporation signed the contract, that's who they're going to sue.
Okay, makes sense. Thanks for clarifying that.
Yeah.
Let's talk, I guess, briefly also about the importance of having contracts. What type of contracts should a contractor have in place? What are the 2 to 3 most common types of contracts?
Okay, so there are, in construction, there are 2 different types, right? You are either, and mostly in commercial, you're going to sign somebody else's contract, and in residential, your customer is going to sign your contract. So those are 2 kind of different areas that we're going to look at. Right. And so the main thing on the commercial side is if you're signing somebody else's contract, you want to understand what you're signing. And they're kind of written in a way that's not very easy, right? You need to have it reviewed and say, hey, what does this mean in plain English?
Right.
And
translate this for me. Yeah.
Exactly. And so like we do it for a flat fee. And what we're going to do is we're going to go in there, point out all the risk, and then you can decide if you want to negotiate or not. But even just having that understanding of what you're agreeing to do or what you're agreeing to do, like the technical details of when to turn in, pay apps, or when are submittals required, all of those little things are buried in there, like how to do a proper change order. And if you don't do it right, then you're in default under the contract, and then a whole bunch of bad things can happen, right?
Right.
So that's on the commercial side. Don't just go off and sign the 15-page contract that they sent you.
I trust you. Yeah.
Yeah. There are no rules that protect you in the contract. And so that's on the commercial side mostly. Or whenever you sign something that you didn't draft, you need to know what you're agreeing to. Sure. And then on the residential side, we definitely have to have a contract, and it's our contract. And so what does that look like, right? And we'll go dive in depth when we do another video, but it's got main things like scope of work, change order, schedule, but it's all in plain English so you can understand it and so your customer can understand it.
Yeah.
And California's got a bunch of language. Yeah. California's got a bunch of language that already put in there. So it's kind of warning homeowners of what can happen and things that have to be in your contract in order to get paid and things like that. But the main thing, especially on the residential, what all contracts do is manage expectations, right? So important on the residential side, because a homeowner has an idea of what this project's going to look like and how it's going to happen. Now, it's based on third-hand knowledge. They don't live it every day like contractors do. And so if you don't correct that vision that they have, that's what they expect. And when you don't perform that way, they get mad, right? And then they call attorneys, and it's a big mess. So a good residential contract does two things. It manages expectations by being clearly written in English. And then number two, it's CYA if there is a legal issue, which means cover your ass, right? If something does happen. But the main thing is, if we're successful at managing expectations in the front end, it'll be less likely that you'll need the CYA on the back end.
Right. I love those legal terms, CYA. Yes. No, I think in any good, quality, well-written contract at the high level should set those expectations. I like that. What are you expecting from me? Like, the deliverables and payments and completion dates, all important. And I'm thinking, as you were describing that, we all witnessed this year in, 2021, the lumber prices, right? The cost of, I want to say insurance, the cost of materials, right? Just skyrocketed. And some contractors, on the residential side and commercial side, some had, some didn't have clauses or language in there to take care of inflation or unexpected price changes, right? So that's probably an important component that became, more aware to people this year.
Yeah, absolutely. And that, like if you don't have that written in your contract on either side, that you can increase what you're owed because of escalation of materials, you're not going to get it. And you are going to eat the cost of the increased material. So, you got to make sure you have covered all your bases. And then again, too, if you're drafting your contract, it needs to be specifically for your business, right? You need to talk about certain things that affect only your business. Like if we're a landscaper and, I keep having problems with people not watering their lawn, but wanting me to replace it because it doesn't say in my contract what maintenance is and what warranty claim is, right? So there's a bunch of different conversations. Yes, here's the general outlines, but I want to know pains that you've had in the past so that we can prevent it from happening again. And then if you're ongoing and you have like this pain, then okay, come talk to me. Let's figure out a way to add it into the contract so we can prevent it in the future.
Yep. Great feedback. One of the common complaints I hear from contractors is the whole issue around collecting payments. And how important it is to, like, from a legal standpoint, how you can protect your business and have a consistent collection strategy. So can you talk a little bit about that? That'd be helpful.
Absolutely. And so the main thing about this is have the strategy in place of what you're going to do before it becomes an issue. Like so many companies come to me with an open invoice report, and they're owed $300,000, and I'm like, well, you missed all your liens timelines, and so I'll do the best that I can. And in California, there's a pre-lien notice that has to be sent. There's language that has to be in your contract in order to be able to file a lien. So especially in California, it is so important to do this on the front end, because if you miss any of those steps, you don't get a lien right. And so collections and liens go hand in hand. So obviously you do the work, you want to get paid for the work, and that's the only way you'll have cash flow and can run your business and feed your family, and all your employees can feed their families. So this is number one top priority. And so the strategy that you have for collection should also build in the lien rules for your state, because here's what a lien is. A lien takes your debt, because normally you're working on a contract, you work and then you wait to get paid. Sometimes you may get paid a little in advance, but usually not.
Right.
That kind of situation, they owe you money, you have nothing to secure it, it's an unsecured debt, just a contract claim. So like if you run up a bunch of charges at Home Depot credit card, you don't pay them, they got to sue you, they don't have any collateral basically.
Right.
And so that's the same type of thing when you just have a contract, it's an unsecured debt. If you take the steps required to have a valid lien, that debt still has the unsecured claim, but now you have a lien against the property to the extent that you're owed money. And so that becomes the secured debt. And if you ask anybody out there whether they rather have an unsecured debt or secured debt, they most rather have a secured debt. It's lots of leverage, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
And so that's what a lien does.
Yeah. Yeah. Good to know. Can you put, or how often at all is it appropriate to put some of these, what do you call it, a collection strategy or collection expectations in the contract up front? How often is that done, and is that recommended? So when you're getting into, you know, a residential or commercial project and you're reviewing the scope of work or the contract, you know, having language in there about this is how we expect our payments, and maybe, you know, if we don't get them, this is going to happen. Can you speak to that a little bit?
Absolutely. I mean, the more clear about what you can be when you expect payment and what happens if you don't, I think that's key. Number one,
right, like setting those expectations, right?
Yeah, exactly. Here, you know, and here's the thing is like too, if you have a multi-phase project that's going to be more than a couple days, and you have an invoicing system, it's best to have an invoicing system, because they're not going to know, the homeowners are not going to know when you reach those milestones. To you, it's very obvious. To them, not so much. And so they don't even know that they owe you, and you're mad that they're not paying you. So having some kind of system. And in California, actually, to file a lien, you have to have, if you're working directly with the homeowner, there has to be certain language in your contract. So already, once we sign once we draft our contract, we're setting ourselves up to have that ability. And it tells the homeowner what can happen if non-payment. Not only could I file a lien, but people who work for me that are not paid can file a lien. And then the timing of when the lien has to be filed should be worked into that as well. So yeah, I would, as much as possible, put it in there. And then, and here's the thing is that you can always send notice early. So like, even though it's in your contract, they know you're going to do it. But if you still haven't been paid, you can send a notice that says, hey, you know, I'm going to enforce my lien rights by filing a lien if you don't pay me by X date. So, you know, just kind of working that in as real leverage. And the whole purpose of the lien statute is to make sure that everybody gets paid, right?
Right.
And most of the time without filing a lien.
Yeah. Great information. Appreciate you covering it in layman's terms, if you will, right? Making it easy to understand. I think we covered most of the things we wanted to do at, you know, at a high level. If you're watching this video and it brought some value to you, please like and subscribe to the channel. We'd love to get some comments or questions for Carolyn. You know, Carolyn, if folks want, you know, have specific questions for you directly in your firm, what's the best way for them to get a hold of you and your firm?
Sure. I have the cromeenslawfirm.com, and it's CROMEENS. And the phone number is 713-715-7334. We're based in Houston, but we're licensed in California, so we can work all over. And so we're here to help.
Perfect. Appreciate the time, appreciate the education, and I'm looking forward to having, you know, some additional videos where we can drill more specifically on incorporation and liens and all those type of topics that are important. So appreciate the time, Carolyn. Enjoy the rest of the week. And again, thanks for being part of Contractor TV.
Thank you so much.
All right. Bye-bye. Have a good day.
Bye.
Bye-bye.